Committee that I don't, oh, and it's recording now. Did everybody hear that fun noise? And we are being recorded for the masses to watch us later. So I will just do a quick roll call of those of us on the Warrant Committee here, and all of us are participating remotely. So I am Sharon Tadro. So Bob, you're on mute, but I saw you mouth it.
Yeah, I'm Bob Slaney.
Jill.
Jillian Rafter.
Steve.
Steve Callahan.
And then we'll also do Ed and Newton since you guys are here. So Ed.
Ed Bazella.
And Newton.
Newton Thompson.
Okay. So before we get going, I actually did just want to take a minute to remember the service members that were lost today in Afghanistan. It's been a rough day, and I actually really want to appreciate Bob for informing me, because my nose has been in my email all day, and I just was catching up on the news. So not a great day, but we certainly want to thank all the service members for all that they do so that we can have meetings and things like this to talk about. So, as well as everything else. So with that being said, just to kind of give everybody a quick recap as to why we're here. And I don't know, Bob, you have a very good way of going about saying why we're here, and you did that last night. Would you like to do that?
Sharon, if I could just interrupt real quickly. So I have to jump off to attend the Pulte interview for the Development Committee. So I will make you a host, but you and Mike will have the ability to grab people from the audience if you want to do so. But you can just, if something comes up, just shoot me a text and I can jump back on if something's going on. All right.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Nick.
Well, let me make this as brief as I can. Like, you know, I'm not always that brief, but as we move towards the special town meeting in the fall, with the article that will be presenting the Wheelock site grades 3 and 5 school building. We have been, as a Warrant Committee, we've been monitoring it. Sharon was the original non-voting member of the school building committee. When she became chairperson of the Warrant Committee, I took on that responsibility, and have been attempting to keep my fellow Warrant Committee members apprised of the information. As we get closer to the special town meeting and the information that has been disseminated throughout the period of time, I felt it was very important for us as a Warrant Committee to become more engaged in this, so that we could make an assessment of information and provide the electorate at the town meeting with the best factual information that we have. We will have, as a Warrant Committee, we do make take a position on each article, as you all know, whether to support or to recommend dismissal of a specific article. So we're going through it as a kind of a two-step process. The first being that we have this subcommittee, which is Sharon, myself, Jill, and Steve, to try and put some initial structure on this. And we have commenced that with a meeting last evening with the Board of Selectmen, which, if you weren't able to participate or listen in yesterday, I would strongly recommend that you come in and take advantage of that when the YouTube of the Selectmen's meeting, which is available on the town's website. Save you some of that. It's about the meeting started about 6:30, and let's say around 6:30, 6:35 is when the Warrant Committee discussion commenced.
It was 7:30. We had to sit there for an hour, remember?
7:30, and it only seemed like 3 hours. It was only an hour. And and we went from 7:30 to 9 o'clock. And it was the format of what we'll try to apply tonight, which is really conversational more than presentation. Each one of us have questions that we'll try to elicit from you what your feeling is, what your position is, what your insights are, really to give us all guidance as to what are the matters that mean most to the town population, so that we can address them and use that in consideration when we vote on the article. All of these meetings are public. As I said, we kicked off last night with the Board of Selectmen. As I said, a great dialogue, great discussion between the selectmen, really. The questions that particularly Jill and Steve asked really set the dialogue really well. And they commenced to really express some points that I think are really worth watching and sharing. Tonight, we're doing yourselves. We are meeting with the school building committee representatives, a couple of them, obviously the chairman, and on Monday night. And then on the September 8th, we're going to meet with the school committee. And on the morning of September 9th, we're going to meet for the day with the Dale Advocates. So what we're trying to do is round through and get a sense of what information are people looking for more detail. And after that September 9th date, or actually in conjunction with it, there are a number of meetings that are being held with committees and town people, town managers, that all the board of the Warrant Committee are going to participate in. There's two or three on each team. But the topics we're addressing specifically right now are, we're going to go over the MSBA process with some of the key people there. We're going to go over the site selection process. We're going to address some of the sewer and water, aquifer and well field issues that have been raised. We're going to talk to the Park and Rec Department to see, because the issue of what's going to happen to Dale has been raised. We're going to talk to the town planning manager and some of the people involved in that, so the impact of the town. We're going to meet with the chief and the town administrator on traffic issues, and overall there's the financial review that's being done, which is review of the budget, comparative to schools, and of course the bond impact on the taxes. So those are the broader or the more specific. But I think if you'll find that what we're hopeful for is that by engaging yourselves and these other groups in these first 5 meetings, that we'll get more insight and have a better idea of what needs to be addressed. Ultimately, we'll have a meeting at the end of October, and Sharon can speak more specifically to that, where the Warrant Committee will come together, will assimilate this information we've gathered, and use it as the basis for our conversation and dialogue that the Warrant Committee has in considering the article. That too will be a public meeting, and will invite public comment. And then a week later, the Warrant Committee will reconvene and make the vote. So that's kind of what the perspective is. And Sharon, I don't know if that's.
I think you did a great job, which is why I just asked you to do that.
Well, thank you. If I could, I'd give you a chocolate from Seattle Chocolate. But
I know we're not together to share the chocolates. So kind of with all of that being said, as Bob said, we really just want this to be a conversation. So kind of like the first question that we're asking everyone is, what are the biggest issues and questions that you are hearing from residents in town, or that you have that you want asked? And so we just figured we'd kind of go around. Maybe I'll put you on the spot and start with you, Mike. But we just would really like to know what it is that you are hearing people want to know the most about to help them make a good decision.
Well, Sharon, as you know, my only skill really is passing the buck. So I'm going to introduce, reintroduce the team here. And,
thank you.
And probably pass it off to them. But before I get there, I just want to say, thank you for making us making the time for us and having us be part of the conversation. I know firsthand how difficult it is to wrap your mind around any warrant article, and particularly this one, obviously. And, the way you're going about it, I think is fantastic. It's appreciated, all your work. Everyone on the screen here is appreciated. And thankfully, it fell to you and not that joker that preceded you, because God knows what kind of mess we'd be in. But with that said, we have Michelle Kirkby, Nicole Drummond, Jennifer Sullivan, Tara Oliveto, and Jenny Shaw, despite the fact that it says Caroline. These are my colleagues on the 4R Kids for Our Town PAC. And why don't we, since Michelle, you're the first one on my left, why don't you kick us off?
Sorry, thanks, Mike. And thank you, as Mike said, to the Warrant Committee for meeting with us. So the original question, what are some of the bigger issues? I feel like you touched on one of them earlier, but I feel like when I talk to people, they have very major and real concerns about what happens to the Dale Street building if a new school is built on the Wheelock campus. And I think additional information is needed on the options of repurposing that building, and then more importantly, like what the cost looks like to do any of those options for the building.
Nicole?
Thank you. And I too just want to thank everybody for allowing us to be here. And I have to say that this allowing or having each of the groups come in, I think is just such a great way to inform yourselves. And I wish that sometimes the town would appreciate and some of our residents would recognize how much work you're putting in to really understand all of this. So I just want to thank you for it. I have two things in addition to what Michelle said, that the two biggest questions that I receive are, what are the bottom line? What's the tax implication for us? Like for me, they don't care about the big number. They want to know what it's going to be for them. The bottom line, if we do build the new school as it is currently set up, and that would be, if we pass it on in the fall. The second question, then the follow-up question is there going to be additional costs for Dale Street, and who would be going into the building? If the building is then, the rumor is FAF, is FAF really going in? And if they're going in, then what happens to the FAF building? So it's like this whole trickle effect of questions. My opinion is it all comes down to the cost, which is completely understandable. People want to know, how it's going to impact them. And then the other piece that people seem to be I won't say very, but they're definitely confused at and frustrated with is there's a number of interest groups, including us, that, we each give information, and some may conflict and some may, support each other. But regardless of it, they're really people want to know, the residents want to know, just a non-interested committee to come out and really explain what is the facts of, because they hear from so many different groups, they don't even know who they're supposed to be really truly looking at as, we've done our research, this is what it is. So
We're trying to do that.
oh no, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying
I know.
that's where
and Nicole, I know what Sharon just said, frankly, is exactly what we on the Warrant Committee feel is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to be the committee that has the total town interest in mind. And Mike knows from his experience and our experiences, we do see the whole picture, both in terms of the current and in terms of the longer term. So to your point there, I think it's hopefully through this process would be able to generate that kind of confidence. Sharon's made it very clear to us in our committee that this is a fact-based. So we're going to we're not, each one of us has the same number of votes that you do when it comes right down to the town meeting. But as we go forward, it's our responsibility to present those facts. And so this is why these sessions are going to be so helpful, because, and this is something that, that one of the selectmen, Pete Peterson, made last evening. He says, we're not here to provide the information because the information is available. The public filings that have been made to the MSBA are voluminous documents. And so I think as we go forward, our intention is to draw you to those pages really where that information is provided. But as we go through, to be able to give confidence that the process and the consideration of the pros and cons that led to that recommendation by the committee, by the building committee. And so the job of the Warrant Committee, I think, is to endeavor to do exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and Bob, the way you guys have broken up the categories to attack it that way and to give your recommendations kind of category by category, I think I'm going to guess that was Sharon Tatro brilliance, but it's really I think it's the perfect way to do it, and I think that's going to really help a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's important also for our group to then be able to communicate that this is, how things are, this is what is happening, so that people can begin to really understand what the Warrant Committee is about and, look to you to see where, everything is coming out. Because I think there is confusion in the town as to, just in general, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm from New Jersey, so this is like completely foreign to me, having warrant committees and everything else. But I think people who move into New England, they're not familiar with the whole process. So, and a lot of people just don't take the time, they don't have the time to take to really understand. So, just the more we're able to communicate that information to them is also beneficial to everybody.
Jen Sullivan, anything to add?
Thank you. Thanks again for having us here. Thank you for doing such a thorough job. Bob, I really enjoyed hearing about all of the kind of different groups that you're meeting with and really trying to get a thorough kind of unbiased understanding of all of the facts. So then you're able to kind of make a recommendation and share that information with others. So thank you. I've been a resident for about 16 years and have 4 kids, 3 of whom have gone through jail. One is a 5th grader there this year. So have a lot of experience and a lot of respect for the educators there and for the hard work that they have been doing to try to utilize the challenging space that they have at Dale Street to do the best that they can and, to educate our students, and have really seen and experienced with, my own kids and other, friends and families, the kind of constraints that are currently there that I know that everyone's familiar with. The thing that I continue to kind of hear around town are people's concerns about time. In 2008, I know that we started the first kind of Dale survey. So that was 13 years ago. And then we first applied to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in 2012, then 2016, 2017. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the whole process has obviously taken a long time. And so people are concerned about if the vote doesn't pass, how much more time are the educators and the children going to need to remain in school that already has so many challenges? So people, that's kind of the question. If it doesn't pass, what is the timing? And the kind of thing that goes hand in hand with that is the impact on the children, the town, the educators, and also the financial impact. What would happen if it took another, we don't know. We don't know if the Massachusetts School Building Authority would continue to help finance it. And I think that's a question for people as well. What would be the chances that they would if the location or, the vote is no? And, what are the implications with increasing construction costs and I guess, kind of also hand in hand with that is looking at comparisons. I know, Bob, you said you were going to look into this, and I learned more about this last night at the school building committee meeting, where they kind of talked about our project in comparison to other towns and other projects that they're doing to kind of see that we are on the same, the same level with making responsible fiscal decisions about the way that the size of the school and what it will include. Does anybody have anything to kind of add to that?
I don't know if I'd like to speak as well. To kind of echo what everyone else has said. Thank you for opening this up to us. And I think having meetings with each, interested group and having them separate, I think is probably the easiest way to kind of get down to the nitty gritty, because I think sometimes everybody can get lost in the minutia of, trying to belabor certain points. So I appreciate the time you've donated for, everything the Warrant Committee has to do, but for having us here today. As Jen said, I've been in Medfield 11 years, and I was really hopeful one of my kids would go through the new, a new building, but that hasn't passed. I have a 7th and a 9th grader. And I think, like what Nicole said, the money is really what it's, the tax implication is really important to people. But I think highlighting and discussing some of the challenges in the Dale Street School, like Jen mentioned, is really important. I work in a neighboring district, and we have a new building, and we have I think like a 40 or 50-year-old building. And the differences in what the teachers have to deal with, it's really quite remarkable. So I think, highlighting what this new building can offer to our young learners, and as they progress through the education system, and getting them prepared to be high schoolers and college students and, valuable people of society, I think is important. I also think we need to talk about, what happens to Dale either way, if it's a yes vote or if it's a no vote. What is that going to look like? And what are the financial implications of trying to improve that building as well?
And kind of related to that too, and I think these are all really important points. What happens to Dale keeps coming up, but what I've heard a little more recently, and what I think does need to be figured out, or at least discussed, is what happens to the current Wheelock school. Because one of the things we've been hearing is that one of the great things about having the Wheelock campus is that it's going to basically lift up the current Wheelock school and make necessary changes that have been neglected, in the hopes of that the current Wheelock school will never look like the current Dale school. So, and that's great, and that's one of the many reasons why I support the project. But if there is a no vote, then what happens to that? Do those changes get kicked down the road like so many others? Will there be money allocated to whatever needs to be done that's already been designated as needs to be done with the ideas of the Wheelock campus? I think that's something that should be discussed and looked into as well. Jenny, anything else to add?
Hi, I'm Jenny. I have 4 kids. My internet's a little funky, so I don't know if I'm choppy for you guys. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you fine. By chance, is one of your kids a Caroline?
Yeah, Caroline Shaw. Yeah, this was her computer Zoom that she would use to Zoom, so her name's on it. I just never got around to changing it.
It's all good.
But first, I just actually, if this has taught me anything, it's to be so thankful to our volunteers. So I just want to thank you all for everything that you do. I think that my team really touched on a lot of really big points that I've been hearing around town. I think that, wait, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think one of the things that I've heard is that one of the reasons why the Wheelock area was chosen is that it incorporates a lot of other projects that would have to be done no matter what at the Wheelock site. And so that makes it a little muddy when we're talking about numbers for the school. For example, I've heard that we have to pave the parking lot, and also that there's a water line that is needs to be done over there. So I think that making those points clear, and same thing with also with Parks and Recs. Parks and Recs has needed a new space. So it's not like this is something that we're, you know, if Parks and Rec was to move to Dale, that's something that needs to be done eventually in the future. So helping people understand that, you know, this is a big kind of almost a town plan to knock off a bunch of these to-dos would be helpful. So that's just what I have to add.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jill or Steve or Bob, does anybody have questions that you want to ask too? Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you guys for taking time to meet with us. This is really helpful to hear all these points you're making about what's important and what you feel needs to be emphasized. You know, one of the questions I asked the selectmen last night was that this process it's taken a long time. It's gone on for a couple of years now, and it's gotten a lot of resources, and it's a very important project. But there's been a lot of discussion in the community, you know, that maybe is conflicting. There's different dialogues going on, a lot on Facebook and things like that. And you know, if you had to pick maybe one, just, you know, I'm sure you all have a long list, but just the most important issue that you feel maybe there's, you know, some misinformation or some confusion over, what would that be? I don't know, Mike, if you have some views on that. And
I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, I think the biggest thing where there's confusion over, and I wouldn't necessarily call it misinformation. I think there's a lot out there, and what you know, what source to trust, and you know, who's the most knowledgeable on the topic. And I always like to look to the experts. You know, like the Mike Quinlan and the SBC, for example. But you know, to that end, one of the issues out there is what happens for a no vote. And you know, I have come to believe and understand that you know, the answer is not very good for us as a town, particularly for those of us that want a school, but you know, even those that may not want a school. You know, Steve, you mentioned how long this process has taken. You know, my understanding is that, you know, a no vote makes that process significantly longer and more costly. But you know, to me, that is one of the biggest pieces out there that you know, I feel like my head's spinning every time it's mentioned. And you talk about Facebook. I just personally, I try to stay off of it, and I find that helps my blood pressure and quality of life by a factor of 10. Anyone else in the pack want to jump in on that?
Go ahead.
You can each do it. We'll go all the way around.
Okay.
So Jen Sullivan, I think you were about to talk. When we said, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think kind of hearing the voices of the teachers is really important. They're working with students on a daily basis. They're trained in best educational practices. They're trained in what a 21st century learner looks like and needs to excel. Our special education teachers know the space constraints that they have and what they need to kind of offer proper services to students. And the current, Dale Street School has a lot of challenges with that. So I think a lot of people really want to kind of hear, kind of stories and things from the teachers, or just really kind of understand how they will utilize the new space and how that will benefit students immediately. Because it's so important to hear their voices, because they know, what they're capable of doing if given the tools and the space.
Nicole, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Mike was saying, and just to reiterate that there is a lot of confusion, myself included, with what happens when it fails, or if it fails is what I should say. If it's, oh my gosh, I'm throwing myself under a bus. Holy cow.
Meeting over.
If it was to fail because there is so much conflicting information out there. Some, it's not even groups, it's some people, and say that, we'll get another year and there'll be another building. And some people say it's 5 years, and some people say that we're going to have to spend our own money. And then if we have to spend our own money, what happens that way? Like, it's all like those that I talk to, and I have to say, I'm a mom of 3. My oldest is in Blake and my youngest is going into 1st grade. So I have quite the spread of them. So I do have to say that I hear from the parents that have kids that could potentially benefit if this, if a building was built so that the current 1st graders, I think, could be our 4th graders. And I also hear from, my son's in 8th grade. So I hear from a lot in between. And I also have someone who's at Dale, and everybody just wants to understand what happens if it does not pass. Like, what is the actual, and I from my research, it seems like we wouldn't exactly know what would, but if they would really like to understand just as much as anybody does know by fact.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to jump in?
I
Tara, are you trying? Okay. I thought
Oh,
you were
no, you
muted.
go. Oh,
No.
oh.
I just want to make sure we could hear you. That's all. I just want to make sure we could hear you.
Well, sometimes I do talk loudly, but I agree with Nicole. I think the more informed the people in the town can be about everything, and I was watching part of the meeting from last night where Mike Quinlan had said this is one of the biggest project the town has embarked upon, and it's going to be the most expensive. So I think the more information they have about what it looks like if it fails in the current time and in 5 to 10 years, we don't even know if we would be reaccepted to the MSBA program. So I think they need to have all the information so that they can make an informed decision. And unfortunately, all of that falls on you to weigh the costs and the benefits to everyone in Medfield, from the students up until, the senior citizen populations. We want to make sure that we're looking long-term and not, I think someone mentioned earlier, like kicking the can on something and putting it off till we don't want Wheelock to look like Dale does. So I think as much information as you can provide the town with.
And I think to just piggyback off of that, to kind of put it in the positive, like what happens if it passes and it's a yes? Like when can we, kind of immediately start feeling and benefiting from all of the positive opportunities that the school will provide? I have a lot of sports players with having 4 boys, and we drive really far to go and play basketball. It's like just one simple example, but the new school will have potentially two big basketball courts that will be open to the community. Performing arts rooms and things for all of the wonderful, kind of music programs that we have. So if it does pass, it sounds like we'll be able to kind of access lots of wonderful opportunities sooner rather than waiting and waiting and waiting, since it's already been since 2008 that the process has started. So I think that would be good information too, like, what are the positive opportunities that, educationally too will be able to be put into place sooner rather than waiting and waiting. How will special education students immediately get to benefit? I know they said that they are looking to have space to put in another access program there so that kids can stay in district and they have space to implement different programming. So I think that's just really great for kids, instead of going out of district, to be in district with their peers receiving programming and things. So, if this does pass and we're able to build the school and immediately start feeling the positive impact, how will that impact everybody, in what ways?
And I just want to make sure that we're, Steve, that we're properly addressing your question. I mean, the basic question is, what kind of issues do we think are muddled or confused out there that need clarification? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, yes. Yeah. I mean, I think, look, a lot of the things I hear or read are around the issue of site selection, right? Whether there was, and it ranges from, there was a problem with the process, or alleged problem with the process, that they didn't get input from teachers or the community, to disagreements with the benefits of the pros and cons that were used to justify the site selection, or even environmental issues that have been raised. And then there's the more notional type arguments of like higher bus costs or greater carbon emissions. I mean, it goes on and on and on, the list. So I'm just curious, is out of all those, is there one in particular that most people are confused about?
Well, I actually think you brought up, the main issue kind of hiding in plain sight that people are confused about is, what are we voting on in November? Because I do think there are people out there that think that, it's more of a check mark list rather than an up or down vote. Like, oh, yeah, I want a new school, but I want it somewhere else. Or I want a new school, but I, want it this big instead of this big. So, I think that's actually that is the most essential issue. What are we voting on in November, and how do we get everyone to understand that you're voting on up or down on the SBC's warrant article?
And if I could also just add too, for conflicting info, I think one of the biggest one I've been seeing a lot is environmental impacts. On one hand, I've heard that the site has been vetted and it's safe to build on. And then, all over Facebook are posts about how we are going to ruin Medfield's water wells. So I think that it'd be helpful to have some clarification on that as well.
And I'll add that, Steve, I think you're totally correct in the placement of, or how there is definitely a confusion about how the selection process, people may not have a question as to how the selection process got there. It's what happened before the selection of the location happened that people are very confused about. I feel like there's all of a sudden came to the forefront of so many people via social media, and because of that, now thankfully you have more, people interested in understanding it, but because so many were not involved in the beginning, it's like, all of a sudden they're like, how did all of this happen? So that process, no matter how many times I feel like I refer them to a website to really understand the timeline of all of it, there is a significant confusion as to why a vote on location did not happen by the citizens. People feel like they should have had a true vote for that. That is definitely conflicting information, but I don't know. I mean, but the police station did not have a vote on location. So people then are like, well, they didn't have a vote. We complained about it then. So why are we not? We should have had a vote for this one, is also some confusing information that has happened. So.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
This is great. Does anybody have any other questions? See Jill leaning into her mute button.
Too. I guess one of the things that you guys mentioned was kind of the community pros to the new location, but I'm just curious if you guys have any insight on even personal insight, but what are some of the community and educational benefits or maybe drawbacks to either location? Is there anything that really stands out to you if it was, a no vote with a relook at, obviously we don't know the answer to that, but a look at a Dale location and the potential use of that versus the Wheelock location, just from a community, aspect, I think would be, I was interested by the space, public access and the space of the new, the new area. So I'm just curious what you guys.
From a community aspect, to me, first and foremost is that, we had this great group of community volunteers on the SBC, led by Mike and his team that, have spent countless hours and all their energy, running through this and determined that that was the best location. So when I know your question's more geared towards, why the Wheelock campus, in that area, but, when you say community, that's the first thing that pops out to me is, here's our community volunteers and they made this decision. So that to me was a huge reason, but also, talking with educators, teachers and Superintendent Marsden and people that know what they're talking about far more than me, the idea of that campus, for that grade level, really spoke to me. And my I have a son who's at Wheelock now. He, won't benefit from the new school, but the difference to me in having him kind of just cross the rotunda to go to the next school rather than, a completely new school and a completely new location at this point in his development would be enormous for him. And I think, that it won't benefit my son, but, hopefully will benefit, other parents, coming up after me. So that's a huge thing for me, but, I want to, Nicole, Jen, anyone want to jump in on that?
I'll speak from my own personal thoughts on it. My middle is on an IEP. He went from Wheelock to Dale on that. The process is exceptionally choppy, and it is not due to anything other than these two schools are literally across the town. It's 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes, those teachers and those aides, they don't have time to really spend with each other. And he felt it, I felt it. Dale the staff and teachers there are amazing and they are aware of it. So they try to compensate as best that they can. But, I have two really all of my kids, they all have some sort of anxiety, and the unknown of Wheelock. And actually, I mean, now it's interesting because the buses now, at least, except for last year, hit the 3 schools. But my oldest, he only went on the Wheelock bus. So he didn't even know what Dale was. So it was like such an unknown for him. And he had never been inside. I took him for like, a walkthrough at the end of the summer so that he would have a better feeling for it. But it's just so much, it could just be so fluid if we had a 2, 3, 4, 5 that really just work together, just from every standpoint. And also, the teacher process, which I know is public, but the teachers at Wheelock, the 3rd grade teachers at Wheelock, they pair together all of the children. They put them into a class of 20 that they think these 20 individuals will work out well. And then Steve comes in and just drops names in to each of those classrooms, because the 3rd grade teachers don't know the 4th grade teachers. So they can't add any value as to what teacher would be a really nice fit, or what group of teachers could be a good fit for my child coming from 3rd grade. So it's totally, they base it based on, here's the description of this classroom, and Steve goes, okay, well, that teacher would be a good fit for that, but it's not an individual student. And then my second concern really is now I've had 3 kids go through Memorial. If a different location was ultimately chosen and a building was not built at Wheelock, if it is built on the location of current Dale, in order to fit what the future of Medfield is, because regardless, in my opinion, of what the statistics show us, Hospital Hill is an unknown. We don't know how many potential families could be coming into this town. And to really provide an area that is truly for the future and build for the future instead of for our current is really important to me. But then to that fact, if we build for the future and build it at Dale, what happens to Memorial? Because Memorial is not adequate to really bring in a larger class. And as is, the preschool program has been depleted so much because there's no space for it. And that's actually a revenue generator. So if we build on Dale, what I've heard is then Memorial would not be able to be added onto, which would then ultimately, are we going to then ultimately have to move a school anyway? So, that's kind of like my whole thought process of why it's less about the location. I'll be very honest. It's less about the location. It's about what the experts say. And it's about for me, it's about the experiences that my kids had, and knowing how much a campus like, especially for that grade 2 through 5, would benefit. It's just, for me, it's a no-brainer to support.
And I'd like to add something too. I think Jen spoke about the benefits of the gym being large enough to have 2 basketball courts that can benefit the community. I know that a new athletic field is folded into the project as well, which, some of us have kids who play sports, and it's slim pickings in Medfield to have a place for, the kids to go to and have a good field. So I think that's important. But in terms of the changing of schools, I think about when, my son just finished up at the middle school, and it was the first time he was in one building for 3 years. And one thing that Nat does, which is great, is each grade has one guidance counselor who loops with them. So I think having that campus model really helps support the ease with which the special education services, or even the guidance counselor, where maybe the guidance counselors can loop with the kids too. And then you have this one adult, and, for the kids who are seeing the guidance counselor or the adjustment counselor, it takes a long time to build a relationship when maybe you have 30 minutes once a week, right? And so having someone that you could see for 4 years as opposed to 1 year, I think from an education perspective, that is huge. And just, thinking about kids with social and emotional issues, maybe there's a 3rd grade teacher, maybe the student's having a meltdown in 4th grade at the first week of school. And if you can call, Mrs. Drummond, I'm just throwing out someone's name, from Wheelock to come over, that, if that happens just once a year, which I highly doubt, those types of situations happen a lot. So I think just the way to support our students to limit the number of transitions they have, I think is helpful, because we know how stressed our learners are, and unfortunately it's creeping down the younger they get. So I think thinking long-term and big picture would be helpful too.
Thanks, Sarah.
A little off of what Nicole said as well. Bob, at the community forum, you and Tim stood up and spoke a little bit about what happened when the memorial expansion didn't pass the way everyone had hoped. I believe that was in perhaps 2000. Is that date correct, or time frame?
Yes, it was 2000. It was the high school, middle school.
But was Memorial also supposed to be like a wing or something was supposed to be voted on and added onto Memorial?
Memorial was the original plan, I think, for Memorial was that it was going to be bigger, but a smaller one is what ended up passing. That's what
Okay,
I'd
and that
always been
happened,
told.
that happened in around 2000, 2001, 99?
It was right before I moved here. Yeah.
Okay, and Nicole.
Yeah, it happened to be fairly close on the tail, within a year or two, I think, of the high school. When was the high school, Bob?
It was 2000, December.
Yeah, so it was, I think the community had a little bit of, too much spending going on. So
Yeah,
I think
I can
that's
see
why
that.
Memorial got scaled down. Yeah.
Right. So Nicole, what year is the class where the class sizes got very big all of a sudden?
Oh, it was a few years after that.
Is that Collins' year, Nicole?
Yeah, Collins' year was the first year. So our current 5th graders, I think.
So what year would that?
Oh, no.
Have been? 2016?
Back into it. Oh gosh, you would think I'm not an accountant or something. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But yes, it was that was when yeah, I should.
I can just, so my son graduated from the high school in 2018, and I remember when he was at Memorial in kindergarten, the classes were so big that they could only offer one classroom of full day K, because in order to fit all of the K kids, they had to be half day. And my daughter was class of 2019. So those classes were over 200 kids. And so you've got that smaller bubble that's like 160, but I'll just say that, so I moved to town right after that vote for Memorial, and I have heard multiple times in the years when my kids were going through in one of the larger classes, definitely not the largest, there was somebody else that was bigger, but I had heard multiple times that, well, if we had voted for the larger Memorial, then we would have had enough room to be able to have full day K. But because Memorial is the size that it is, having full day K isn't an option without adding on to it or bringing in modulars. So
I guess my personal concern then, I guess, is I feel one of the things, or some of the things I hear, is that the numbers and projections perhaps aren't correct. And to me, if we look at our own history, in 2000, we voted down an expansion on Memorial that we've started to have problems with 15 years later, not 50 years later, not 70 years later, 15. Like, that's really not that far away from when that project was shifted to become a little bit something different. So to what Nicole was saying in regards to future expansion in the Memorial space, building Dale at Dale or expanding in the Dale space just feels like it really inhibits the future abilities of the town to do anything from an educational standpoint for the children of Medfield. And I just hope, or want as a town, to be forward thinking in regards to what we're looking to do for the future.
Yeah, I think that was we heard some of that from Mike Marcucci last night.
yeah, he talked about that.
The flexibility that doing this at Wheelock allows the town from both the memorial site and the 345 potential at Wheelock. So.
Sorry. Sorry. So yeah, that's the point I was trying to make, though, is just I hope as a town we can really be thinking about those kind of different things. And Jill, I guess a little bit to your question on how the community can use it. I don't feel like we do a lot of community events right now at Dale, and I don't know personally why that we don't. I'm guessing there's a lot of different hindrances to be able to utilize that space. But again, from a forward-thinking standpoint on how we can use some of these multi-purpose spaces that are being proposed. I mean, I've been here for 7 years. I was very active in Newintown, and I'm very active right now in the school groups, and I can already play around in my head with a lot of different ways that we would be able to utilize that space.
Jill, I can share also just from personal experience. So my background was that I worked as an elementary school counselor for 10 years. And when I first started working, I was in a town where I was at 2 schools across town. And it was very, very challenging to go back and forth between schools. You never felt completely immersed in a school because you were here and there, and I would be at one school and a student would have certain needs or issues, or I'm doing a social skills lesson, or somebody had a loss in their family, and a book or a resource or something that I need is all the way across town at the other school. And when you're in the moment with a student who's in need or is upset, it's really hard when you don't have what you need to support them right there with you. And I know a lot of our kind of special education staff is that they feel that way now, that things are kind of choppy, having to go back and forth from school to school. I then worked at a school that was a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade school. And that was wonderful. I felt very immersed within the community. I was able to loop with the kids and developed really deep, strong relationships with the students and with their families. And I didn't lose valuable time traveling and getting situated in things because I think that's a challenge right now with the way that our schools are set up. Our, special educators are losing valuable time working with students due to the travel time and the getting settled time and things like that. And that's just a negative impact on the kids, which we could benefit from having that campus school again, where it can be more fluid, where the staff can work together better. As Mary Brule did a wonderful presentation recently, and she really explained how a campus setting like that, especially with that age group, usually K1, you're kind of learning to read, and then 2 through 5, you're reading to learn. So there's a lot of curriculum that builds upon each other in those ages, and developmentally, there's a lot that that staff can do to kind of scaffold the learning and social emotional support within that age group. So it's a really nice way to kind of have those 2 age groups together. And the transition issue with having kind of the schools with 2 grades in each school, really that does minimize the transition issues that a lot of kids face right now too. So I think those are some benefits. And from personal experience, just having experienced both, it's a lot better when you can have continuity.
That's great. Does anybody else have any other questions? It's been a great conversation. So I appreciate everybody's opinions.
Yeah, I don't have a question. Oh, wait a minute. Go ahead, Newton. You have a question?
Yes. What I was interested in, this may derail the conversation a little bit, and I apologize for that. I was interested, and we can defer this till the end, Sharon, if you want to, or Bob, but interested in about the work and the mission of the PAC itself. And I have a few questions about that. How are you going about gathering information? Is it just hearsay, or do you have your ears to social media? And what are you going to do between now and special town meeting? Do you have any particular outreach objectives, et cetera, that you are attempting to do?
Yeah, well, I don't know, Newton, do you want me to answer you or your windowsill?
I was gonna say window, I mean, you accidentally flipped your screen.
I did. How do I get it unflipped?
I don't know what you clicked, but it's all good.
Climb up
Go
on the
ahead.
window, Newton.
Yes, you are.
I know, when you went to unmute
There's
yourself,
Evergreen
somehow you
Way
flipped
out the
your
window.
camera, but it's all good.
There it is. Got it.
Nice diversion there, Mike.
There we go.
I got very excited there. You know, look, Mike, the last time I was approached by a PAC was back in the 90s when my boss dropped some literature on my desk. And he said, this is for a contribution to the big corporate PAC. And of course, it's a personal decision.
So, I mean, as far as, you know, gathering information, you know, whether it's just hearsay, I mean, you know, we're, you know, reading and listening to the same things that everyone else are, which is, you know, the information from, you know, the SBC and, you know, the school committee, which, you know, I certainly wouldn't call that hearsay. To me, you know, they're the experts. You know, we've talked to teachers and, you know, talked to people in the community, both, you know, people that are you know, in favor of the plan as we are, and those that disagree with us, and people that fall in between. So, you know, that's our, I would say that's probably the process of information gathering. But, you know, as far as what we're doing between now and then and our objective, you know, my objective, we have how many voters in Medfield?
8,000.
8,000. I want every one of them at town meeting. That's my objective, because this is the most important thing that, you know, any of us has to vote on right now, and it's so important to everyone, whether or not you have kids in the schools currently, you used to have kids in the schools, or you're going to have kids in the schools. I mean, this is huge. This is the show. So, you know, our objective, show up at town meeting, every one of you.
So are you, you know, do you have an outreach effort underway?
Yes, and you know, if you'd like you'd like to be on our mailing list, I'm happy to put you on.
I'm trying to keep my independence, Mike.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, outreach just like you do with any campaign. It's email, social media, direct mail,
Okay.
word of mouth, phone calls, smoke signals. Sometimes I just sit in someone's front yard that I haven't met before, and I just wave at them until they come out and talk to them about Wheelock. But you haven't been on my list yet, Newton, but I'll put you to the
I'll
top.
see you at Medfield Day, I'm sure.
Yes, it will be at Medfield Day, booth
Mhm.
50, I believe.
Well, we'll meet at the Mike Pastore blue table,
The
actually.
blue tables, I knew it. It took till 8:08.
You know, Newton, your question was exactly where I was going to go. First of all, thank you all for your input. For me, it's been very helpful, because we do get more of the official positions. We meet, you know, the Warrant Committee meets with all departments. We meet with all the committees, and it's remarkable. The one thing that really has impacted me is the amount of you know, participation that volunteers and the time that's spent by all these different committees, and we meet them throughout. You talked about Park and Rec, you talk about, you know, the water and sewer, the water commission, the housing, it's just remarkable. And so your participation to me is very helpful. I have a couple of asks in that respect, and I would mirror what Mike said. First of all, there's over 8,000 voters in Medfield, and I think a little over 4,000 households. And you know, the success of what we're endeavoring to do on the Warrant Committee, from my perspective, will be measured by the participation at the town meeting. I hope we have rooms all over the building. that are filled and with people. And I think that's our job, is to get the information. And I think your help in marshaling those people. Frankly, you know, we each have one vote, but as a committee, I feel our responsibility is to get the information out to an informed citizenry who can make a decision, whatever that decision is. But the more that we have participation, the better that decision will be. And I think that's, you know, if it's limited to a fixed number of people that, you know, on one side or another, it's going to be less beneficial to the town. If the more people that participate, so if we can get that information out, if you can give us some guidance on how to get that information out. And I would invite you also that if you have other people that you clearly do have to get back to us with the kind of input you provide tonight, I think it'd be very welcome.
Absolutely.
I was going to suggest, Sharon, did you you set up a feedback email that
Yes, for better or worse.
maybe
Warrant
we could
Committee@medfield.net.
advertise it now. So if not obviously for these folks, but if anyone watches this video later on, they'll have that. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, so there was a patch article, little snippet. I don't really know if it qualifies as an article, that Colleen Sullivan put out yesterday that just describes the process that we're going through, and that, you know, people can check out our agenda list to see when these meetings happen. But at the bottom, we do have a new official Medfield email address. It's just called Warrant Committee at Medfield.net. So anybody that wants to send any questions, concerns, facts, anything into there to help us through this process, we would thoroughly appreciate it. And then we'll forward them out so everybody on the committee can get them. So with that being said, does anybody else have any other questions? I found this really helpful to talk to all of you, so I really appreciate you all taking the time out of your evenings to do this with us. And I have to say, when we decided to embark on this mission to do everything, my goal is I don't want anybody to vote a certain way at town meeting because they didn't have an answer to a question. And so I don't want that to be either the reason why, like, I don't want someone to say, oh, I didn't go to town meeting because I didn't know how to vote because I didn't have the answers to questions. That would be horrific to me. And so really the biggest thing is making sure they have the facts. And so as Bob alluded to, we are just trying to gather those facts, understand those facts, and agree as a committee that these are the things that should be read and seen by all townspeople in order to make their opinion. So our hope is that in October, we'll hold a warrant hearing. We're going to, I think we decided at our last meeting, the town website in the warrant committee section is going to become a repository of all of the information. So, and some of it may just be links to other places that it's already available. We're just trying to put it all in one place. So I would encourage anybody that if you have any certain things that you think that everybody needs to be looking at, to send them. Like, for instance, I already got one suggestion that everybody should look at the town master plan and kind of what into that. So like there'll be a link to that up there. So, and we'll probably be linking to the SBC website. You know, we're going to be linking to lots of different things, but if there is anything that you have come across that you think is a good authoritative fact on something, I don't want to put their opinions. I want it to just be facts, if that makes sense. We all will have our time in our day in court to give our opinions, but we're going to save those until after we have agreed upon the facts that we will all use to make those opinions with. So with that being said, if anybody doesn't have any more questions, then I'll let Bob make his favorite motion that he always likes to make. But
my motion is to adjourn.
Oh, okay. Does anybody disagree with Bob?
Second.
Okay. All right. So Bob, I'll let you vote first too.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Jill?
you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
thank you.
Jill,
Thank you. Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
and I vote yes too. And I have no idea how to shut this down as host other than potentially hit end and it just ends. And I'm going to hope I don't screw anything up. So
Have a great weekend.
thank you,
so
everybody.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
This was-
And thank Caroline for the Zoom.
Yes, thanks, Caroline. Bye, thank you.
Bye.